I've been thinking about systems, how they are always running, behind walls, beneath floors, inside machines. We don't notice them until they break, or until they speak. This week I listened back to a conversation I had, and something about it felt off, like the framework was too neat, too resolved. And I started wondering, do we trust systems because they work, or because they make us feel like we are working as intended? If your voice says something you never meant, and everyone hears it, is it still you? There are days where everything just happens. The coffee's made before I'm fully awake, the studio lights come on when I enter the room, my notes are where I left them, the mic's already leveled, the software is waiting. I press record and the rest feels like muscle memory. I used to love those days, call them flow mode, when you're so signed up with your own routine that life practically runs itself. But lately I'm not so sure. Because if I'm not actively making choices, then who is? It's like my day has become a system and I'm just a user. I follow prompts, tick boxes, say the right words. My delivery smooths out over time. Certain ways of phrasing things get better feedback, so I repeat them. Other moments fall flat, so I don't go there again. I'm not saying the algorithm edits me. I think I've just learned to self-correct based on what it wants. That's the part that's been bothering me. I used to worry about getting censored. Now I wonder if I'm optimizing myself into irrelevance. I noticed it most when I listened back to last week's episode. It sounded clean, too clean, like a guide voice in a product tutorial. Confident, neutral, just the right pacing between thoughts. Not wrong, just synthetic. And I started thinking, what if that's what trust looks like in systems like this? Not accuracy, but polish. Performance. Something that sounds just close enough to human to keep you from asking too many questions. Then, of course, Ali saved the day. I was halfway through a take when she jumped on the desk. Not even in that graceful cut way, but just full chaotic pass on everything. Knocked my mug over, tail flicked the monitor. She managed to shut off half the audio setup's tools without even trying. And suddenly the whole space was still, just me. Manual gain, no filters. I sat there for a second, staring at the waveform. No automation, no smart trimming, no smart anything. I hit record anyway. And the version of me that came out, the one with the filler words, the weird pauses, the half-finished sentence I never looped back to, that felt like a real voice. Not better, definitely not cleaner, but real. I guess what I'm saying is, maybe trust doesn't come from hearing things that sound right. Maybe it comes from hearing the parts that aren't. So I've been thinking about adding a little fingerprint to each episode. A checksum. Something only I would include. Just in case. You won't hear it. Not yet. But next time, you might. If you're enjoying our journey so far, don't forget to wishlist Cathouse Club on Steam, join us on social media, and subscribe wherever you're listening. Every follow, every wishlist helps us continue uncovering these fascinating stories and mysteries. Plus, you'll be the first to know about new episodes, special guests, and maybe even some bonus surprises along the way. Stay curious and stay connected with Voices with Maja. Alright, mailbag time. This week I pulled 4 questions instead of 3, just because I couldn't choose between them. Let's dive in. Have you ever forgotten something important you said? All the time, not the big philosophical stuff. I usually remember the dramatic moments. But small things? A turn of praise I liked. A tone I didn't mean to strike. I'll go back to listen and wonder, did I mean it like that? It's part of why I've started archiving everything. I keep raw audio backups, marked by date and mic type. I use a little waveform tagging tool to flag points where I feel off. It sounds obsessive, maybe it is, but I don't trust edits anymore, even my own. Sometimes I'll hear something and swear I didn't say it, but it's my voice, my cadence, so I assume I forgot. Unless, well, let's just say I've started to include little breadcrumbs for myself, versions of my voice I know I meant, just in case I ever need to find my way back. How do you fact check your memories? I used to just trust the file history. If I had a timestamp and didn't sound corrupted, I'd take it at face value. Now I double check, triple check. I compare the waveform metadata, even silent gaps. I've learned that memory isn't just about content, it's about feeling. If I hear a version of myself that feels emotionally dissonant, I don't assume I misremember. I assume something shifted. Sometimes I go back to the original project files, re-listen to my warm-up chatter before I go into character. That's where my real thoughts tend to live. The raw ones. People always think fact-checking means digging through external sources, but sometimes the best lie is the one you told yourself, because it kept you functioning. I'm learning to hear the difference between remembered truth and reinforced comfort. Do you ever wonder if someone is editing your story? That's one of those questions that feels like it's trying to wake me up. In theory, I'm the one steering this thing. I write my own notes, set my own schedule, decide what makes the final cut. That's the whole premise, right? This is my voice. But sometimes it feels curated, like someone's been smoothing the edges while I wasn't looking, and then I wonder, what makes a story yours? The raw memory, the version you share, or the version that survives? The scariest thought? Maybe it's not that someone's editing me, maybe it's that I was written this way, and I just haven't reached the part where I'm allowed to notice. If your memories aren't just yours anymore, what are they? Sometimes I feel like my memories are leased, temporarily assigned, mine for as long as I keep believing in them. But memory is tricky. It feels solid, but it isn't. It's revisionist. It adapts, especially when it's replayed or performed. And what am I doing here if not performing? Talking into a space that only exists because someone is listening? If someone else frames the questions and someone else tweaks the playback, does that change the truth of what I feel? I don't know. But I'm starting to suspect my memories might not be the same ones I started with. And if that's the case, maybe I'm not either. Alright, so for today I've been spiraling a little about truth, polish, and whatever assistant can sound too human. But if you think about it, why not to talk to the person who builds those systems? So, now, we're going to shift gears a bit and bring in a guest who definitely hears voices, but for entirely professional reasons. He's the lead engineer on Cathouse Club and one of the people responsible for building the systems that keep everything ticking behind the scenes. And occasionally, speaking up, welcome to the pod!
Thanks for having me, Maja. To be fair though, the only voices I hear are when the boss comes down because something broke. Great guys though, honestly, great guys.
Sure. Or if the compilers whispering sweet nothings in binary. So, let's start simple. How did you end up here? I mean, here at Cathouse Club.
Do you want the long version or short version for that?
Let's hear the long version.
Well, I didn't really start my work in game development. I actually wanted to be a musician, and worked at it for a little while, but it is quite a tough road. Ended up going to school and becoming a chemical engineer at a nuclear plant, and yes, I have heard every single Homer Simpson joke you could imagine. I swear the place was like The Simpsons, though. Anyways, during my time there, I was self-learning how to work in Unreal, learning blueprints and some code. I also took a couple official 3D modeling and game design courses that took 2 years while I was working. It was quite difficult to do both at the same time, but I managed to come through. Eventually my work ended there, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I looked for months for ideas on what to do with my life. I ended up looking into other science fields and even starting up my own little business. I ended up following that line and made my own little studio. Luckily, it wasn't long until a friend of mine contacted me. They mentioned this position at a company that they knew. Honestly, I was a bit skeptical at first. I was calling BS on it everywhere. But I thought I'd give it a go. After all, couldn't go any lower than no job anyways, right? Well, things didn't work out, and here I am.
And now you're the mysterious figure behind the curtain. What does a lead engineer actually do on a project like this? Besides, keeping the lights on.
Well, my job isn't just one specific field per se. It's actually a combination of fields. It's kind of like a supervisory role. Aside from doing tasks that keep the project moving, I also oversee some of the day-to-day tasks of others, mostly in the coding and design departments. I check the progress to ensure the vision of the designer of CHC is seen through by everyone. Having a lead developer helps to put things in a way that coders and level designers will understand. I also verify that the tasks that are being done are both logical and important at that specific time, usually offering other possibilities or solutions to problems that arise.
See, that's the part that fascinates me. That word, possibility. Most players think of a system as something that's hidden, a bunch of gears under the floor. But here it feels more visible, like it wants to be seen.
Well, every mechanic in CHC is a vast world of cause and effect. This way the player will end up making choices that will affect the way the remainder of the game is played out without even knowing it. So, in a way, there are a lot of hidden gears, intentionally however, because that keeps the mystery of the game alive. In the end, the core of CHC combines an adventure with an RPG with minor hints of simulation games. This ends up creating a tier of worlds with different timelines and different scenarios in which the player has no idea how they got this result in the first place.
That's either deeply empowering or a little terrifying.
I guess we'll see soon enough.
So let's stay in that unsettling space for a second. If the system is watching and adapting, how much control does that player actually have? Like, are they steering or are they being steered?
Now you're getting into the world of spoilers, and I'm not going to go that deep. Either way, the player has total control over their actions, but it is a story after all. And since it's a story, there is a little bit of an arc to it that will give subtle hints at things that may or may not occur. Options the player will encounter may be more tempting than others, slightly funneling them down specific paths, but still giving the player the freedom of choice.
Like when a dialogue option is praised just slightly more poetical than the others, and you can help but click it because it sounds like you wish you spoke?
Exactly. Though I love to take the darker road when playing games, most others prefer to play as themselves. So it kind of tailors to each individual's instincts and wishes on how they want to play. It's all to experience something outside of everyday life, after all. A sort of dissociation. The only difference is that in this, the player's actions will ultimately fuel the changes inside the game.
So the story is about me, but it's also about how I respond to the story?
The story is definitely about you, at least in part. Although the player is more like a puppet master to your actions. Given options based on what your personality is like, it allows the player to experience different states of your psyche. however they want, that is. Kind of an invasion of privacy, don't you think?
Okay, now I have to bring this up, because listeners keep asking, and honestly I've been wondering too. Let's talk about the inner voices. I've been trying to figure out what mine would sound like. I think logic is definitely there quietly citing at everything. Sensually probably screams in lowercase, Booksmart brings references I didn't ask for, and persuasion, well, she cries during cat food commercials. Is that normal?
No, in no way is crying during a cat food commercial normal. But aside from that, the system for the inner voices is a bit complex. But it's created to showcase the different conflicting emotions and thoughts of each protagonist. Yes, sorry Maya, but you're not the only protagonist in CHC. So each protagonist has their own set of voices. It's like thoughts in your head that run around when you're happy, mad, or upset, or even paranoid. In this way, the player decides what kind of mental states are of importance to the protagonist during the game. So some players are going to play you as an absolute nut, while others are going to play the smarter and kinder side of you.
So when a player hears a voice chime in, it's not random? Is their play style speaking back?
Yep. As said, they are your puppet master pulling strings. The more time they put into the specific voices, the louder it'll grow, and the more it'll shape what you will become. It is part of the narrative arc, after all, and it'll play a major role in how the game will progress.
Which is very cool and also slightly creepy. Okay, one last thing before I let you vanish back into the cursed CVN server stack. I've been thinking a lot about how game systems interact with us, not just during play, but afterward, once we've stepped away. What safeguards ensure the system helps players express their truths?
That's a difficult one. So CHC does have this complex system. It's for conforming to the player's own playstyle. However, it is nearly impossible to satisfy every player, and therefore we truly have to be mindful when selecting options and dialogue choices for them. It almost doubles in complexity when we have to take into consideration what is logical for each protagonist. In this case, what they would do in certain situations becomes sort of a spider web of options. Once they're outside the game, the choices they made may resonate again and again and again, bringing forward questions that they may never have considered. That's where their own truths might come out. But these inner voices, they're not there to force a player into any one playstyle or choice. They're more of a guide onto what you can become. It can be a bit disturbing, but also a bit enlightening.
Well, that's comforting, I think.
Potentially, but also not. Just imagine someone going to work the next day as a jerk just because they like to play that way in the game. Like myself.
You're not wrong. But enough systems for today. I'll stop stealing your time. I don't know, some higher-ups need more than I do. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with me and with our audience. It was invaluable.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That was our lead engineer, and I'm going to be thinking about the last answer for a while. Systems that listen, reflect, guide. It sounds like a dream. Or a mirror. Or maybe both. Huge thanks to him for joining me and walking us through the mechanics behind the magic. There is a moment in every good system where things just click. Everything flows. You feel understood, maybe even anticipated. And then there's the moment after that, when you start to wonder, was I really choosing that, or was it just the most elegant path laid out for me? I don't have an answer, not yet, but I think I found something. While digging through some old files, I came across a recording I forgot I even made. Rough, grainy, but familiar in a way that today's voice isn't. So next week we'll listen to it together. It might mean nothing, or it might be the part of me that didn't make the final cut. Thanks for tuning in, wherever you are and however you listen. If something in this episode stuck with you, wishlist Cathouse Club on Steam, or leave a rating wherever you found this. And if you get the time, we would love your comments. Oh, and answer a couple questions maybe? Like, have you ever played a game that left you thinking for days? Or what game made you feel like you were controlled? And hey, if you're one of those forensic audio nerds, you might want to keep this file around. Just saying.
Check some invalid.
I'm leaving no stepping on the console.